Mom and Dad are getting back together. Sony and Disney have figured out their differences. They've cut a new deal. Spider-Man will remain in the MCU, and we've got a new Spider-Man movie coming pretty soon. So let's talk about it. In case you've been living under a rock, about 6 weeks ago, the negotiations between Disney and Sony fell through. To way oversimplify things, the initial deal that they've had for the last 4 or 5 years, or however long it's been, was that Disney would get about 5% of gross, which is way too low. And so then they proposed a 50-50 split, which is way too high, in which case Sony turned them down. Negotiations came to a standstill. D23 happened. It felt like Kevin Feige made statements kind of giving some closure to it all. Tom Holland likewise made some closure-esque statements. All sorts of rumor mill stuff has been running this entire time. There's some big, bold statements from studio heads like, well, the door seems to be closed right now. And then as of about an hour ago, both studios announced they have cut a deal. This isn't rumor mill stuff. This isn't something off of Reddit. This isn't something from a chat board. This isn't some guy heard something. The studios have officially announced it. Every major movie publication is running with it. They have made a deal. They are back together. Tell me what you think about it down below in the comment section. Are you excited? Were you kind of getting excited about the idea that Sony could do more things and have their own Spider-Man universe? Tell me your thoughts down below in the comment section. With that said, I'm just going to walk through a couple of the articles and the specific things that have been officially said. Starting things off with the Hollywood Reporter, Kevin Feige said this: "I am thrilled that Spidey's journey in the MCU will continue, and I and all of us at Marvel Studios are excited that we get to keep working on it," said Marvel topper Kevin Feige. "Spider-Man is a powerful icon and hero whose stories crosses all ages and audiences around the globe. He also happens to be the only hero with the superpower to cross cinematic universes. So as Sony continues to develop their own Spideyverse, you never know what surprises the future might hold." So that first part is kind of, generic excitement from Kevin Feige that he still gets to play with Spider-Man inside of his sandbox. That last sentence there is where it starts to get really exciting, because he's like, yeah, Spider-Man has this other superpower. He's in a second shared universe of Spider-Man characters. Like, he says that in the quote. So all that speculation of the Sony Spider-Man Spider-Verse type stuff going on, Kevin Feige just said, yeah, that's probably still happening. So all kinds of weird, crazy stuff is going to happen, but we're going to get to play with him a little bit more. That's very interesting. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know if all the implications of him being in two different universes, the same actor, how they're going to communicate. All the communication stuff didn't seem to work the best with all these TV shows that have been going on the last few years, where it seemed like Kevin Feige basically ignored all of them. So this could be very interesting for however that plays out. It continues, "Terms on the new deal were not revealed, but it will allow Marvel and its chief Feige to produce and run creative on one more movie that would star Tom Holland, the actor who is currently incarnation of the web-slinging superhero. Depending on how things go, more movies could be in the offering." And then Variety continues on that point. "The film is scheduled for release on July 16, 2021. Amy Pascal will produce through Pascal Pictures, as she has on the first two Holland-led films." So there's two big important details in there. The first one is that there's only one movie in this new deal. The second one is that release date. The previous deal they cut had two Spider-Man-led films, plus Spider-Man appearing in, I believe, 3 different MCU films. This one looks like it's just for this one film, which I imagine is so that they can kind of close out the story arc, if they want to kind of close some doors, if they want to let his character run off in his own direction. Whereas obviously where Spider-Man Far From Home ended, like, that just didn't feel like a closure for his involvement in the MCU at all. It felt very weird if that was the last time he appeared inside of the MCU. So they've cut a deal where we get one more, where you get either closure, or if things are going well, if they like it, it leaves a little bit of wiggle room for him to continue inside of the MCU. And this movie's coming out, once again, 2 years from now. So they are working hard on these deals. And we've heard all the chatter that the writers were still hired, the writers were still working. So all of it seemed like they were moving ahead with something, towards something, whether this did or did not work. So it's not terribly, Sony seems to really want to crank out Spider-Man movies right now, so they're just keeping this pace of every 2 years, which I guess is good for us. Maybe we'll find out with this next one if they burn themselves out on cranking these things out too fast. Variety went into a little bit more detail on the specifics of the deal. Disney will receive roughly 25% of the profits. According to insiders, Disney will retain its merchandising rights. As part of the arrangement, Spider-Man will appear in one future Marvel Studios film. So, a little bit more information on the math of it all. Originally, it was 5%, then it was proposed 50%, right there in the middle, roughly 25%. Once again, that's an extreme oversimplification of the numbers, but makes sense that they're right there in the middle with where it looks like the numbers landing. I think most people would say, yeah, that's probably a good number given that Disney's doing a lot of hard work to make this thing awesome. Sony owns the rights. We should be right there in the middle between the two proposed numbers. So what do I think about all of this? Spider-Man in the MCU, I think, has been good for everybody. I think it has been a win-win-win. Disney gets Spider-Man probably as just a standalone character. Pretty safe to say the most popular Marvel character, a fun character. He gives you get a teenage superhero, and their target audience is largely teenagers. I mean, there's a bunch of wins for them that they get to play around with Spider-Man inside of their universe. Sony gets to be attached with the hitmaker, Kevin Feige, and their franchise. They get all of the clout, the great creative team, all of those resources. They get that for their movie. And Spider-Man Far From Home, most successful Spider-Man movie as of yet at the box office. I mean, it's working for everybody, and general audiences seem to be liking it. Tom Holland's a very popular Spider-Man. The movies are making a ton of money. All sorts of great chatter came out of Far From Home. A bunch of people absolutely loved that film. I was very positive on it. Not my favorite Spider-Man movie. So you've got a win-win-win situation, so it only made sense that they would try and come together and make something work. I don't think it's better for either one of them to split off, and I don't think it's better for us, other than to say there's some things that they could do with this Sony Spider-Man universe thing that I think you probably couldn't do if they're mixed together. But in general, I'd rather have him play over here in the Marvel Cinematic Universe than just have a Spider-Man Spider Universe over here. So, and finally on that note of, I am a lot more skeptical, though, of what that's going to look like with Tom Holland showing up in Venom or Venom and Spider-Man vs. Carnage or whatever that stuff's going to look like. I get kind of nervous with cousin universes and stuff like that going on. All the implications, and if they use Spider-Man as this bridge and now technically Venom's kind of in the MCU or something like that. I don't know about all of that, but I guess we'll see what's going to happen with all of it. In general, I'm very positive on all of this. Tell me what you thought down below in the comment section. Are you throwing a party tonight? I'd love to hear your take on all of it. Thank you so much for watching.